Her life had just crumbled in front of her. At 18, Tessa Williams was abandoned by the one person she thought she could trust, her millionaire boyfriend, Nate Montgomery. He left her pregnant and alone. He promised her everything, but the moment she needed him most, he disappeared. And it wasn't just Nate, her parents too. They told her, "There's no place for you here anymore." Thrust into a world she didn't know, Tessa was forced to face the consequences of betrayal, without anyone to lean on. But things were about to get much darker. This wasn't just about a broken heart. There was something far more dangerous at play, a conspiracy that could destroy everything she thought she knew, and no one was safe. What really happened to Nate? And why was Tessa left holding the pieces of a puzzle that had been carefully constructed, without her knowledge? The truth is about to come out, but it's worse than she ever imagined. If you're watching this, you're about to be part of a story like no other. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the shocking twist that could change everything. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let's uncover this mystery together. Tessa stood there for a long moment, staring at the mansion she once called home, her heart sinking with every breath. The weight of her situation hit her harder than the cold wind biting at her skin. She had nowhere to go, no one left to turn to. The life she knew was gone, swept away by betrayal and rejection. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it. She didn't need more empty promises or words that meant nothing. Every text, every call, felt like another lie. Nate's mother had tried to reach her again. Why? What more could they possibly want from her? Just a month ago, she was living a life of luxury, surrounded by wealth and privilege. But now she was a ghost in her own world, a forgotten part of a family that never really wanted her. As she stepped into the dimly lit building, the stench of stale air and the hum of the broken elevator reminded her of just how far she had fallen. It wasn't just her world that had crumbled, it was the person she thought she could be. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but all it felt like was the beginning of an even darker chapter. Her thumb hovered over the message from Nate's mother. The words were simple, but they carried weight. "I need to talk. It's about Nate. It's important." A part of her wanted to throw the phone across the room, but another part, one that had been crushed too many times, wanted to know the truth. Everything she thought she knew about Nate, about her future, had been a lie. But what was the truth? And what was she willing to sacrifice to uncover it? Tessa didn't know it yet, but the journey ahead would push her to the edge. It wasn't just about love or betrayal anymore. It was about survival, and what she was about to uncover would change everything. The apartment was a far cry from the life Tessa had once lived. The walls, chipped and peeling, seemed to echo the silence she now felt in her chest. The faint hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room, until her phone buzzed again. Another call from Nate's mother, another reminder that no one was really gone, or at least not yet. It had only been a week, but it felt like a lifetime. A lifetime of sleepless nights and endless questions. Why had Nate left? Why had her parents turned their backs on her? And what was this about the family's secrets that had been buried so deep she couldn't even see the surface? She wasn't the same girl who had once dreamed of a perfect life with Nate. The girl who thought love could fix everything. No, now she was just a girl trying to survive, trying to make sense of the chaos she had been dropped into. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the letter. It was from Nate's mother, written just days before his disappearance. The words were sharp, calculated, and above all, cryptic. "The truth will destroy him, Tessa. If you don't step up, it will all fall apart. You're his last chance." Her stomach twisted as she read the message again. This wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't about the love they once shared. The stakes were bigger than she could comprehend. She was in the middle of something far more dangerous. A family empire built on lies, greed, and power. What if everything Nate had told her was a lie? What if this wasn't some tragic misunderstanding but a carefully crafted plan to get rid of her? Was she just another pawn in a game she never agreed to play? Just as she started to piece together the first real clue, a knock interrupted her thoughts. She wasn't expecting anyone, not here. Not in this part of town. But there was something about the sound, steady, purposeful, that made her feel a chill in her bones. Caleb. The man who'd come into her life like a whirlwind. His presence was a reminder of everything she was trying to escape. But now, standing in front of her, he wasn't the stranger he once seemed. He was the link to the answers she so desperately needed. Tessa, I know you're scared. I understand. But you need to listen. The Montgomerys are not what you think they are. And you have to make a choice. He had come for a reason. But Tessa wasn't sure if she could trust him. The Montgomerys had destroyed her life in ways she hadn't even begun to understand. Could Caleb really be different? Inside was a thick stack of documents, contracts, legal jargon, and a photograph of Nate. But it wasn't the photo that caught her attention. It was the name scribbled on the back of it. Someone she didn't recognize. Someone important. William Montgomery, Nate's father. The name that could destroy everything. Tessa didn't know it yet, but this was the first clue that would lead her down a path darker than anything she had imagined. Her heart raced. William Montgomery wasn't just Nate's father. He was the mastermind behind everything, the one who had orchestrated it all, the one who would stop at nothing to protect his family's legacy. She could feel it now, the walls closing in. There was no turning back. If she was going to survive this, she had to know the truth. And fast. Tessa sat at the small kitchen table, the documents spread out before her like a jigsaw puzzle she had no hope of solving. Caleb had left her with more questions than answers, and the weight of what she was holding felt too heavy to bear. Everything she thought she knew about Nate, about his family, was falling apart. But one name kept resurfacing. William Montgomery. The name behind the conspiracy. The man who had orchestrated Nate's departure. And the man who seemed to be at the center of the storm Tessa was now caught in. She had never met William Montgomery, but his reputation was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a man who controlled everything around him. And now it seemed, he controlled her fate too. Her head spun. How could Nate, the man who had promised her the world, be connected to someone like this? How had she not seen the truth? The lies were suffocating, and she felt the weight of them pulling her under. As the days passed, Tessa couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something about all this, the secrets, the betrayals, felt like pieces of a much larger puzzle she wasn't meant to solve. She needed answers, and if Caleb was the key to unlocking the mystery, then she had no choice but to confront him. She dialed his number, her finger hesitating over the screen as the phone rang. Tessa, I'm glad you called, but you have to understand, this isn't simple. The Montgomerys don't just let people walk away. His voice was smooth, calculated, but there was something beneath the surface, something that didn't sit right with her. Caleb knew more than he was letting on, and Tessa was done being kept in the dark. Then tell me the truth, Caleb. What exactly did Nate get involved in? What is his father hiding? Nate's father is the one pulling all the strings. What you don't know is that this... Pauses. This wasn't just about you, Tessa. You were part of a much bigger game than you ever realized. Tessa's heart pounded in her chest. A game. What game? And why had Nate been caught in the middle of it all? It didn't make sense. Caleb's revelation was only the beginning. It was clear now. Tessa wasn't just dealing with a broken heart. She was dealing with an empire built on corruption, and her own life was hanging by a thread in the middle of it all. Be careful, Tessa. There are things I haven't told you. Things that could put you in more danger than you're ready for. The Montgomerys don't just destroy lives, they erase them. Her mind raced. If Caleb was right, and if the Montgomerys were as dangerous as he claimed, she had to move fast. But what could she possibly do against a family that powerful? The only thing she knew for sure was that she couldn't back down now. Not after everything she'd learned. She was in too deep, and there was no turning back. But there was still so much she didn't know. So much she had yet to uncover. The Montgomerys were powerful, yes, but they weren't invincible. And Tessa was about to find out just how far they would go to protect their secrets. Don't miss the next twist. Subscribe now, and join Tessa as she uncovers the darkest truths of her life. What's really at stake? Comment below and let us know what you think. Tessa sat in the quiet, dimly lit apartment, the weight of Caleb's warning still hanging in the air. She wasn't used to feeling vulnerable. Life had always been so controlled before. But now, every move she made felt like stepping into unknown territory, and the darkness around her seemed to mirror the uncertainty inside her. The Montgomerys had a power over her now, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching her every move. She should have been afraid, but something inside her, something buried deep, was waking up. A part of her wanted to fight back. But how? Her phone buzzed again. More messages from Nate's mother, the woman who had helped destroy her life, the woman who had turned a blind eye while her son tore Tessa's world apart. She should block the number, shut her out. But part of her, some stubborn, foolish part, wanted answers. She swiped to answer, her heart racing, as if the woman on the other end had a secret she had no choice but to uncover. Tessa, I know you're angry. I know you feel betrayed. But there's more to this than you understand. You need to listen to me. Her pulse quickened. She'd heard enough lies, enough manipulation. But there was something about Nate's mother's voice, something in the way she spoke, compelling Tessa to stay on the line. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. After everything you've done, why should I believe a word you say? Because I'm trying to protect you, Tessa. You're in danger. And if you don't listen to me, everything you've worked for, everything you thought you knew, will be destroyed. Her instincts screamed at her to hang up, to turn away from the lies and the deception. But a part of her, the part that had never given up on Nate, the part that still clung to hope, wanted to hear the rest. The city below her felt just as empty as the space inside her. She had no answers, no direction. She was tangled in a web she couldn't untangle, and with each new revelation, the walls around her seemed to close in even tighter. She had to make a decision. Was she going to let Nate's family pull her into their world of lies, or was she going to walk away? The Montgomerys were powerful, yes, but so was she. She could fight back. But at what cost? William Montgomery, the man who had orchestrated Nate's disappearance, the man who had played Tessa like a pawn. But how deep did this game go? And where did Tessa fit into it all? She could feel it now. The pieces were falling into place, but there was still something missing. The truth about Nate. The truth about why he left. The truth about her role in this twisted game. Tessa knew one thing for sure. She couldn't keep running from the truth. It was time to confront it, head on. She wasn't going to let the Montgomerys destroy her. Not now, not ever. It was time to turn the tables. But what was waiting for her on the other side? She had no idea, but she was ready to find out. Tessa stepped out into the cold night air, her breath visible in the streetlight as she walked with purpose. There was no turning back now. The Montgomerys had pulled her in deep, and the more she tried to push away, the tighter their grip seemed to get. But tonight, she was going to break that grip. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. She had made up her mind. She was going to find Caleb. It was clear now that he wasn't just a lawyer in this mess. He was part of it. But maybe, just maybe, he held the answers she needed. And if she was going to get them, she had to confront him. Tessa, what are you doing here? He didn't expect her to come. No one did. But here she was, ready to drag out the truth, even if it meant exposing everything Caleb had worked for. The truth had a way of dragging everyone into the light. I'm done being in the dark. You said you were trying to protect me, Caleb, but all you've done is keep me in the shadows. So tell me, what's really going on? Why did Nate leave? Why are the Montgomerys involved in this mess? Tessa, I wanted to protect you, but you're already too deep. The Montgomerys aren't just a family. They're an empire. They've been running things in the shadows for years. Nate didn't leave you because he wanted to. He left because he had no choice. She could hear the urgency in his voice now. Real fear. Caleb wasn't playing games anymore. He wasn't hiding the truth, but that didn't mean he was done lying. Then tell me the truth, Caleb. I don't need half facts. I need everything. It's about power, Tessa. It always has been. Nate was never in control. From the moment he was born, He was groomed to take over. But the deal, the one he was supposed to finalize, was never meant to include you. And when you got pregnant, it complicated everything. They needed him out of the picture. And you were just collateral damage. Collateral damage. That was all she had been to the Montgomerys, a tool, a pawn in their game. But the anger she felt, the betrayal, nothing could prepare her for what Caleb said next. You don't understand, Tessa. I didn't want this. I never wanted this for you. But the truth is, Nate is being forced to marry someone else. Someone in his family has made sure of it. And if you don't stop now, everything you fought for will be destroyed, even your child. Her world spun. Nate was trapped, and she was stuck too. There was no way out, not without facing the monster that was Nate's family. Then we'll make sure they don't get away with it. Tessa had always been the girl who followed the rules, who believed in love, in right and wrong. But this wasn't a world where love could save her. This was a world where power ruled, and Tessa wasn't going to let herself be a casualty of that anymore. Caleb's eyes followed her, the realization settling in that he had just stepped into something much darker than he'd anticipated. But Tessa wasn't waiting for permission. She had made her decision. I'm not backing down. If you won't help me, then I'll do it myself. I'll take them all down. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding behind anyone's protection. Tessa Williams was going to take the fight to the Montgomerys, no matter the cost. Don't miss a single moment. Subscribe now and stay with Tessa as she fights for her future and her child's. Tessa's footsteps echoed down the empty street as she walked with newfound determination. The night was colder now, a biting reminder that the world she had once known no longer existed. She wasn't just fighting for her dignity anymore. She was fighting for something far more precious. Her first stop was a local dive. Nothing fancy, but it had become the place where the Montgomerys' darkest secrets had a way of spilling out. And if she was going to get answers, this was the place to start. Her eyes scanned the room, the weight of her mission heavy in every step. She had no time for hesitation. If the rumors about this place were true, the bartender was the key to uncovering the next piece of the puzzle. I need to know everything about the Montgomerys, especially William. You know where to find him, don't you? You don't want to get tangled up in that mess, kid. They own this town, and anyone who crosses them doesn't come out clean. His warning was clear, but it didn't faze her. She'd already crossed a line she could never uncross. The only way forward was through, and the Montgomerys weren't going to scare her back into hiding. I don't have a choice anymore. I need to know what William Montgomery's involved in, what he's hiding. Take this. It's not much, but it's enough to get you started. Trust me, you won't like what you find. Tessa's hand shook slightly as she took the envelope. Her stomach twisted in anticipation. What had William Montgomery done to keep his empire so tightly controlled? The photos were grainy, but the faces were unmistakable. William Montgomery was in every one, standing next to politicians, business moguls, and people Tessa had only heard about in passing. But there was one face that stood out. Lance Holloway. The name didn't ring any bells. Her fingers flew over the screen as the name flashed back in front of her. Lance Holloway was a notorious fixer, a man who specialized in cleaning up the messes the rich and powerful left behind. A man with ties to some of the dirtiest deals in the city. This was the man William Montgomery had been working with, and if Tessa was going to get to the truth, she had to start with Holloway. With a name, a few photos, and a gut full of rage, Tessa now had her target. But Holloway was a ghost. He didn't leave traces. If she was going to find him, she had to dig deeper into the underworld, into the places where the law didn't reach. As she made her way back to the apartment, Tessa couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was at play. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the truth. And the deeper she went, the more she realized just how dangerous that truth could be. Every step she took toward uncovering the truth only seemed to pull her deeper into a world she wasn't prepared for. But there was no turning back now. Tomorrow she would go after Lance Holloway. Tomorrow she would find the man who held the key to everything. Stay with Tessa as she dives deeper into the dark world of the Montgomerys. You won't want to miss what happens next. Subscribe now for the full story, and leave a comment below. How far would you go to uncover the truth? Tessa's fingers gripped the business card as she sat in her small apartment, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. Lance Holloway wasn't a name she could ignore, not if she wanted the truth about the Montgomerys. But as she looked at the photo of William Montgomery smiling next to Holloway, something gnawed at her. There was more to this than she realized. Her gut told her that this man, Lance Holloway, wasn't just a fixer, he was a player. A pawn in a game she hadn't even begun to understand. And if he was involved with the Montgomerys, then he was someone Tessa needed to face. The phone rang once, twice, before a deep, gravelly voice answered on the other end. "This is Lance. My name's Tessa Williams. I need to speak with you about William Montgomery. It's urgent." "I don't talk about Montgomery, Miss Williams. Not to people like you." There it was. The first real door slammed in her face, but Tessa wasn't one to back down. She couldn't afford to. "Then you know exactly who I am. And I know what you've done. You're not getting away with this, Holloway. You can keep hiding behind your money and your connections, but not for much longer. You think you're the first one to come after me? The first one to dig into Montgomery's business? You don't know what you're up against, kid. You're in way over your head. Maybe, but I'm going to keep digging until I find out what you and Montgomery are hiding. And when I do, it won't be pretty for either of you. Then you better be ready, because once you open this door, there's no going back." Tessa wasn't naive. She knew that getting involved with Holloway would be dangerous, but she had already crossed that line, and now there was no turning back. She couldn't just walk away, not when the truth was within her grasp. The anger inside her was a constant fire, but it was tempered with a sharp, growing fear. The Montgomerys didn't just hold power. They were power. And Tessa was one move away from a game she didn't even know how to play. Tomorrow she would make her move. But tonight, she needed to prepare. If she was going to confront Holloway, she couldn't do it unarmed. She needed leverage, and she knew just where to find it. The city felt colder now, more oppressive. She wasn't alone in the dark anymore. Every shadow seemed to watch her. But the further she walked, the more she knew. She was getting closer. Closer to something that would either destroy her or set her free. She had one last lead. One last connection to someone who might be able to give her the truth. If he was still alive, that is. His name was Ray Donovan, and he'd been involved in the original deal between Montgomery Enterprises and Holloway. If anyone knew what was really going on, it was him. The man who answered wasn't Ray, but the look in his eyes, hard, suspicious, told her all she needed to know. This was the last place anyone wanted to be found. This was it. The moment she'd been preparing for. The confrontation that would either bring her answers or bring her to her knees. She wasn't sure which one it would be, but there was no turning back. Don't miss what happens next. Tessa is about to face the biggest challenge of her life. Subscribe now to stay ahead of the twists and turns. And comment below. What would you do if you were in her shoes? Tessa had learned quickly that survival in this world meant finding allies in the most unlikely places. As she stepped into the dimly lit apartment, the weight of the moment pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. This wasn't just about exposing the Montgomerys anymore. It was about getting out alive. She hadn't expected Ray Donovan to still be alive. He was supposed to be a ghost, buried in the shadow of the deals that had shaped the future of Montgomery Enterprises. But here he was, leaning against the kitchen counter, his face worn with age and regret. The same man she'd heard about in whispered conversations. "You should have stayed out of this, kid." Ray's voice had the kind of rasp that came from too many years in the game. He wasn't afraid, but he sure as hell didn't look like someone willing to help her. Yet somehow, Tessa knew he was the key to everything. If she wanted to crack this mystery wide open, she had to get him on her side. "I didn't come here for advice, Ray. I came for the truth. You know what they're hiding, and I need you to tell me. You think you can just waltz in and change everything? You don't get it, do you? The Montgomerys have this city wrapped around their finger, and you're walking straight into their fire." Tessa's gaze hardened. She wasn't some naive girl anymore, hoping for a fairy tale ending. She had crossed the line, and now there was no turning back. She wasn't asking for permission. She was demanding the truth, no matter the cost. I don't care about the Montgomerys. I care about what happened to Nate. I want to know why he left, why his family's pulling the strings, and why I'm caught in the middle of it all." Ray didn't seem surprised by her words, but he knew she was right. She had already walked into the lion's den. There was no way out now. And maybe, just maybe, he'd been waiting for someone with enough fire to stand up to the Montgomerys. Here's what you need to know. The Montgomerys don't play fair. They never have. But Nate, he wasn't just a pawn in their game. He was their key. And once they figured out what he was really hiding, they locked him down. Ray's words confirmed everything Tessa had feared. Nate hadn't been the victim of some random scheme. He'd been targeted by his own family. The truth was worse than she had imagined. And now, there was only one person standing between her and the heart of the conspiracy. "I need to find Nate. If they've locked him down, I need to know where he is. I'm not walking away until I get answers." "Fine, but you'll need to play their game if you want to get close to him. You can't just barge in and expect them to roll over. They'll crush you first." Ray's warning barely registered. She had already made her choice. Tessa was in it now, no turning back. If she wanted to save Nate, she had to expose the Montgomerys for who they really were. As she stepped back out into the night, the world felt smaller, tighter. She wasn't running from the Montgomerys anymore. She was running toward them, toward the heart of the lies they had built around her. The closer she got, the more dangerous the game would become. Tomorrow, she would confront the heart of the Montgomery Empire. Tomorrow, she would get closer to Nate. But first, she had to face the man who held the power to destroy everything. Don't miss what comes next. Tessa is about to make her boldest move yet, and the consequences could shatter everything. Subscribe now to stay with her every step of the way. And comment below, how far would you go for someone you loved? Tessa barely slept that night. The weight of what Ray had told her settled deep in her bones, an unshakable truth that made every part of her life feel like a lie. The Montgomerys, the power they wielded, the secrets they kept. It all felt like one long nightmare. But she was awake now, and she wasn't backing down. The game had changed. No more hiding. No more waiting for someone else to take charge. Tessa had learned that the truth wouldn't come to her. It had to be dragged out piece by piece, even if it meant destroying everything in the process. She had made her way to the heart of their empire. Montgomery Enterprises. Their headquarters stood like a fortress, an impenetrable wall of glass and steel, a place where deals were made in silence and lives were controlled behind closed doors. But she wasn't here for the grand tour. She was here for answers. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to speak with William Montgomery." "Mr. Montgomery is unavailable at the moment. Do you have an appointment?" Tessa knew this was coming. There was no way they would let her waltz in and have a casual chat with the man who controlled everything. But that wasn't the point. She was here to send a message. "No appointment, but I'm not leaving until I speak with him. If you need a reason, tell him it's about his son." Her heart raced as the phone call dragged on. She knew William Montgomery wasn't just going to let her in. But she had one thing on her side: time. The longer she stood here, the more uncomfortable they'd become. And once she had their attention, she'd make sure they couldn't ignore her. "Mr. Montgomery will see you now. Follow me." Tessa followed the receptionist down the polished hallway, her footsteps echoing in the silence. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. She was about to come face to face with the man who had ruined everything for her. William Montgomery was everything she had imagined, and less. A man who had everything: wealth, control, a name that commanded respect. But what he didn't have was a daughter-in-law who was ready to fight back. "I've been expecting you, Tessa. What is it you think you're going to accomplish here?" Tessa didn't flinch. She didn't come here for niceties. She came here to demand answers, to expose the truth, to make him understand that she was not afraid. "I came here to stop you, to make you face the truth about what you've done to Nate, to me, and to everyone you've destroyed along the way. You have no idea what you're dealing with. You think you can just walk in here and change everything? The Montgomerys are untouchable, Tessa. We don't play by your rules. I'm not here to play by your rules, William. I'm here to expose everything you've been hiding. You've made a grave mistake if you think you can just crush me without consequences. Her words hung in the air, sharp and defiant. She wasn't backing down. Not this time. The stakes were too high, and she was finally ready to take the Montgomerys down. You think you're the first person to try and take me down? I've crushed every threat that's come my way, and you're nothing but a child who thinks she can play with the big dogs. His arrogance stung, but it also fueled her. She wasn't just any child. She was the one who had survived. She was the one who was still standing after all the lies and manipulation. You're wrong. I'm not just some scared girl anymore. And I'm not leaving here until you understand that your empire is crumbling, one secret at a time. Tessa had stepped into the lion's den, but now she wasn't afraid of the roar. William Montgomery had made his last mistake by underestimating her. The game had changed, and Tessa was no longer just playing to survive. She was playing to win. Tessa is standing her ground against the most powerful family in the city. What will happen next? Don't miss the next twist in this battle. Subscribe now to keep up with every shocking turn. And comment below. How far would you go to stop someone like William Montgomery? Tessa stood face to face with William Montgomery, her resolve unshaken despite the weight of his presence. The room felt like it was closing in around her, but she didn't back down. This was the moment that would define everything, the moment where she either walked away and let the Montgomerys win, or took a step deeper into the fire and fought back. You think you're going to intimidate me? Do you really believe you can take me down with these amateur tactics? I'm not here to intimidate you, William. I'm here to expose you for the lies, the manipulation, and everything you've hidden from the world. You may have the power, but I have the truth, and that's something you can't control. You have no idea what you're up against. The moment you started digging into my family's business, you signed your own death sentence. If you think you're going to walk away from this, you're dead wrong. Tessa's heart raced, but there was no fear, just determination. She wasn't backing down, not now. Not after everything she had already sacrificed. She had already lost so much, and now, it was time to win. You're wrong if you think I'm afraid of you. You've had control for too long, William. But this is where it ends. For a moment, there was a crack in William's unflappable demeanor. The slightest shift in his expression told Tessa everything she needed to know. He was no longer sure of his victory. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. You think you can take me down with your righteous anger? I've destroyed people far stronger than you. Tessa's stomach tightened as she watched him. There it was. Her name. Right there in black and white. She hadn't realized just how much the Montgomerys had been watching her. They had already mapped out every move she had made. These are all the records of your past, Tessa. Your life. Your secrets. Everything. And it's all in my hands. So tell me, do you still want to play this game? You can try to control me with your threats, William. But it's too late. You're not the one holding the power anymore. I'm the one in control now. The truth is coming out, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Fine. If you want to play dirty, we'll play dirty. But remember, Tessa, when everything falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you. With that, he turned away from her, signaling the end of their confrontation. Tessa stood there for a moment longer, her body tense, every muscle coiled, but she didn't let his words shake her. She had already made up her mind. There was no turning back. Her heart pounded, but there was no fear. She had finally seen the true face of the enemy, and she knew she was no longer alone in this fight. And she had allies now, Caleb, Dominic, even Ray. But the biggest ally she had was the truth, and no one could take that from her. As the elevator descended, she could feel the weight of the decision she had just made. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Nate. It was about the child she was carrying. And it was about taking down the Montgomerys, no matter the cost. She had crossed the point of no return. But that was the only way forward now. There was no escaping the storm that was coming. But Tessa was ready to face it. Tessa's battle is far from over. The stakes are higher than ever. Subscribe now to stay with her as she takes on the Montgomery Empire. And comment below. Do you think Tessa can really bring them down? Tessa's resolve was hardening with every passing day. She had already made the biggest move of her life by confronting William Montgomery. But now, the real battle was just beginning. The truth had started to emerge, but the deeper she dug, the more she realized how far the Montgomery empire stretched. The documents from Ray, the photos, the phone calls from Nate's mother, all the clues were pointing in one direction. The Montgomerys had orchestrated everything from the start. Nate's disappearance wasn't some random act of rebellion. It was planned, calculated, and Tessa was a pawn in a game much bigger than she had ever imagined. Caleb's calls had become more frequent lately, each one more urgent than the last. But Tessa had learned to trust her instincts, and right now they were telling her something wasn't right. Caleb, you've been avoiding me. What's going on? Tessa, we need to meet. It's about Nate. I found something that could change everything. You won't believe it, but you need to hear it in person. Where are we meeting? She walked in cautiously, her senses heightened. The cafe was quiet, almost too quiet, like a place where secrets were exchanged in hushed tones. But this wasn't about the setting. This was about the truth, and Caleb had something she needed to hear. You said you found something. What is it, Caleb? Tessa, these are the documents Nate never wanted you to see. He was working with someone in his family who was planning to take everything from the Montgomery legacy. His own blood. And William? He knew everything. Her heart skipped a beat. This was it. The revelation that would tie everything together. Nate hadn't just disappeared. He'd been caught in a battle for control of the family empire, a battle that had been brewing for years. Who are these men? Why wasn't Nate ever involved in any of this? He wouldn't have agreed to... Nate wasn't just involved, he was forced into it. They were using him as leverage, Tessa. His family knew he wouldn't break under pressure. But when it came to protecting you, they used that against him. They knew he wouldn't leave you. That's why they manipulated him. The weight of his words crushed her. Nate had never chosen to walk away. He had been cornered, just like she had. The Montgomerys had been playing a much darker game, one that didn't involve love, but control. Why didn't you tell me this sooner, Caleb? Why are you telling me now? Because I couldn't risk it, Tessa. I didn't want to put you in more danger. But now, I know you're not just a pawn. You're the key to taking them down. This was the moment when everything changed. Tessa wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a player in the game. And now, she had the weapon to bring the Montgomerys to their knees. If I'm the key, then it's time to use it. We're going after them, Caleb. All of them. No more hiding, no more lies. You're right, but we have to move fast. The Montgomerys won't hesitate to strike first if they know we're onto them. Time was running out. The stakes had never been higher. Tessa had just stepped into the final round of a battle she couldn't afford to lose. She was no longer fighting for revenge. She was fighting for everything she had left, and everything she stood to lose. With the truth now in her hands, Tessa knew there was no going back. The Montgomerys had tried to break her, but she was stronger than they ever realized, and she was about to show them just how far she would go to take everything from them. Stay with Tessa as she goes head-to-head with the most powerful family in the city. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now to keep up with every shocking twist. And comment below, how far would you go to expose the truth? Tessa had no illusions anymore. The battle she was about to fight was one that would leave no winners, only survivors. She had taken on the Montgomerys, and she had the truth. But truth alone wasn't enough to bring a family like theirs to its knees. She needed leverage, something they couldn't ignore. She had crossed every line, confronted William Montgomery, used Caleb's connections, risked everything to expose the family's dark dealings. And now, it was time to make her final move. The Montgomerys had made a mistake. They'd underestimated her. They thought they could break her with betrayal and lies, but what they didn't understand was that Tessa Williams wasn't like the others. She didn't run from fear. She embraced it, and she was about to use it against them. She had gathered everything she needed, proof of their corruption, evidence of their manipulation. But it wasn't just about exposing them anymore. It was about taking control. For the first time in her life, Tessa wasn't waiting for someone else to fix things. She was fixing them herself. You've really done it now, haven't you, Tessa? You think you can take us down with a few scraps of paper? You're right about one thing. It's not just about the papers. It's about what happens next. You see, I've already taken the first step, and now I'm holding all the cards. She'd known the truth all along, but now she was about to show them just how far she was willing to go to end their reign of control. No more games, no more threats. The Montgomerys were about to face the consequences of their actions. You think this will scare me? You're playing a dangerous game, Tessa, and you don't know who you're really up against. I know exactly who I'm up against, and you're not as untouchable as you think. Everything was on the line now, but Tessa didn't flinch. She had already lost everything once. Now, she had a chance to reclaim it all. The final blow. The one thing the Montgomerys couldn't deny. A document that tied them to a series of illegal deals. Their hands stained with the blood of those they'd crushed to climb higher. This was her weapon. This isn't over, Tessa. You've made a mistake. You don't know what you're dealing with. You're right about one thing. It's not over. But you've already lost, and you'll never control me again. The game had changed. Tessa had played her cards perfectly. The Montgomerys had underestimated her once. Now, they were facing the consequences. Tessa had fought for everything. And now, she had the future she deserved. No longer the victim, no longer the pawn. She was the one in control now.